Hello everybody. In this video I'll be drawing this girl character entirely in Inkscape, in real time and step by step, using nothing but a keyboard and mouse. This tutorial is perfect for beginners who want to make characters using only Inkscape. All you need is some basic understanding of the software. Link in the description for a quick introduction to Inkscape that has everything you'll need for this tutorial. If you're a frequent of the channel, these two characters are probably familiar to you. These are a bit like the mascots of the channel. They were the first characters I made for my very first course, and they are still probably my favorite that I've made for a course. But I never drew them in real time, not even in the course. Back then I had a different way to work. So I'm taking this opportunity to put to good use all the new things I learned, make some improvements, like make them more friendly for animation, and just show you how to make them step by step. I originally planned to draw them both in this single video, but the video ended up being just way too long. So instead, we'll draw the girl only, and in a future video, maybe the next one, we'll be making the man. But before we begin, I'll let you know that I'm currently working on a new course, and if you'd like to help me during the production, you can get a special bundle with all my courses. That's 11 Inkscape courses, dealing with character design, background design, game art and more, about 70 hours of content, all for 19 bucks. It is only for a limited time until I finish the course I'm working on. After that the bundle promo will be gone, and everyone who purchased it will get a new course for free in an update. Link in the description. Thank you for supporting the channel. Now let's move on with the tutorial. The way this is gonna go is the same way I always recommend to draw characters in Inkscape, first with an underdrawing or mannequin and then drawing on top. So that's our first step, making a simplified version of the final thing that fits the proportions and pose. So starting with the head, grab the pen tool and draw this tilted triangle. Make sure to match the angle to mines. And then switch to the node tool and drag from the left side to give it this nice curvature. We got the head, now let's do the body. This is gonna be a trapezoidal shape that's wider on the bottom, always using the pen tool. Now quickly make the two legs. These are two rectangles slightly tilted to the right. The shirt is gonna be just another rectangle. The two shoes can be two rectangles as well. The character will have the two arms at the back, so the arms will be these triangles. And the neck is just another rectangle. We have the underdrawing to guide us, but we need to do some quick preparation so we can work more comfortably. First, we need to lock these shapes so we don't accidentally select them as we are working on top. And then we need to lower the opacity so we can see better what we are drawing. To do that, we're going to use the Layers dialog. So go to the Objects menu and then Layers and Objects. If you started from a blank document, then everything you drew should be located on the default layer 1. Click on the lock icon right next to the layer name to lock it. Now we can no longer draw or select anything on this layer. Then go to the little box that appears when you hover over the layer name and click it. Lower the opacity to about 50 or 30%. Finally, we need a new layer to work, so click on the Add Layer button and don't forget to select it. Okay, we're ready to start the final drawing on top. Let's start with the most complicated part of the body, the head. Grab the ellipse tool and draw an ellipse. You can use the palette to give it simple colors. We want a black stroke, so shift click on the pure black swatch, and this will apply it to the stroke. We don't want any fill, so hit the first swatch. Move it to about the center of the head. We don't want exact circles, so use the black arrows in the object tool to squash it a bit down. To make the other eye, just duplicate the eye with Ctrl D and move it to the side. This eye is farther away from us, so it always looks great when you indicate this by squashing it a bit horizontally to imply some basic perspective. For the iris, it's gonna be a slightly elongated ellipse. but we want this ellipse to be tilted to the right. The easiest way to do this is to switch to the object tool, click again on the shape to show the skew arrows, and then holding Shift so the skew happens from the bottom instead of the default center point, skew it to the side. You can duplicate the iris to the other side with Ctrl D. But remember, the eye is a bit foreshortened, so maybe make the inclination less strong, again with the skew controls. Finally, the eyebrows. These are just two thin rectangles made with the pen tool. Moving on to the nose. This is super easy. Just make two perpendicular lines with the pen tool. Then add the curvature with the node tool so both look like this. Remember to put the nose really close to the eyes. The mouth is just a long line made with the pen tool. The ear is the final feature missing. I like to draw them by first making this C shape with the pen tool. We need to smooth these corners, so select the two outer nodes and click on this button in the tool controls of the node tool to transform them into smooth type nodes and add in the curvature automatically. Next is the inner part of the ear, which in cartoons you can make it with this C curve on the upper part. Now for the hair. This is gonna be much more simple than it looks. Grab the pen tool and make these 3 spikes looking like this. Now switch to the node tool and grabbing from the center, add the curvature into each line. The back part of the hair is gonna be these two shapes with 2 spikes. Make sure to start at the corner to make it match with the other hair. Then you add the curvature just like before. The character has this tiny lock of hair at the top, so again draw it using straight lines and then curve them with the node tool. Finally, we need the actual shape of the head. I don't want to mod the design by closing it just yet. I don't want it to look ugly and confusing. I will close it later. And the neck is just a rectangle made with the pen tool. Continuing with the body. The shirt is gonna be made of 2 parts. The first part is the lower part and it's gonna be made of this open shape. With the node tool, curve the bottom a bit. The top part is gonna be made of this shape, which is made of 2 sleeves joined together by the upper part of the shirt. We're making it like this so it's a bit more animation friendly, in case you want to animate it later. This way you can move a bit the arms around. Curve the bottom of the sleeves and the top of the shirt. I said I want this drawing to be a bit more animation friendly, but I am not about to draw the entire arm just for that. If the animation requires the arm to show, then we will draw it. For now, make it these 2 rectangles. To round off the hard corner, you can use a trick I love to use. With the node tool, holding Shift, you can drag from a node to pull out the handles. And this will introduce a curvature in a very controlled way. It's a great shortcut to remember. The shorts have this short shape. Make sure to overlap it with the shirt. Don't forget to curve the bottom with the node tool. The legs are just 2 straight rectangles. Notice the angle. They are not straight. They're a bit tilted to the side. The shoes, you can draw them by making a rectangle with the pen tool. And then you can just remove the top left node using delete, and this will automatically give it this curvature you want. A couple of extra details to finish the legs. The shoes can have a straight line at the bottom and a curved line going across. Duplicate the shape with Ctrl D and move it to the other side. Then hit the H shortcut to flip it horizontally. You can make it fit using the black arrows that show with the object tool. And the socks, we could just draw on top with the pen tool, but I wanted to show you a technique that we will be using all the time. Draw a rectangle with the pen tool that is bigger than the width of the leg. Select the leg and hit Ctrl D to duplicate it. Without moving anything, shift select the rectangle you just made and hit Ctrl and asterisk to perform a Boolean intersection. And now you got a new shape that matches the exact shape of the area where the previous shapes intersected. Continuing with the sock, bend the top of the sock square to keep implying some perspective, and then draw two lines to indicate some sort of detail. You can repeat the same steps with the other sock, but it's not necessary here. You could just duplicate the sock and move it to the other leg, just like we did with the shoe. You don't even need to flip it. It just fits right in place. We got the drawing, but now we need to give it color. And to do this, we need the Fill and Stroke dialog. So go to Object, Fill and Stroke. Starting with the skin, select all the objects that are supposed to be skin, the head, the arms, and the legs, and go to the Fill tab in the Fill and Stroke dialog. Click on the solid color, and here you'll see three sliders that control the different values of a color. You can copy my exact colors by looking at the numbers in these inputs, so from now on, to speed up the things a bit, every time I will set a new color, I will make zoom to this part so you can copy my colors if you want. Anyway, continuing, we got a problem. We didn't keep in mind the C order of the shapes because we were working without fill, but now we need to rearrange them. These buttons in the tool controls of the object tool can move the shape up and down the stack. Use this button in particular to send the selected shapes to the bottom. You can also use shortcuts. It's probably better to start getting used to using them as soon as possible. Continuing, I forgot the ear. Rather than give it the color with the Fill and Stroke dialog, I'm gonna use the Dropper tool, which allows you to sample colors from the document. The hair is gonna have this color. Once again, using the buttons in the tool controls of the object tool, adjust the C order. The two eyes are gonna be pure white. You can just use the palette to set those simple colors. The two eyebrows are gonna be pure black, and they should be on top of the hair, which is not very realistic, but very common in cartoons. The iris should be of this color. The shirt, the short, and the socks and shoes should be pure white. Adjust the C order as you need. A couple of things before moving on to the final part. The ear should be on top of the hair. The neck should be connected with the head, but rather than joining it with a Boolean union, I mentioned that I want to make it a bit more animation friendly, so I want to keep it separated. What I'm gonna do then is to create a shape that obscures the lines between the two shapes. I think that is the most flexible way to handle this. So with the pen tool, make a shape that obscures completely the line. Sample the color from the skin with the Dropper tool, and remove the stroke if it has any. The neck should be on top of the shirt, and here you can give it a bit of a curvature down to imply the opening of the shirt. A few quick adjustments to the head. The final thing is closing the face, which I didn't want to do before, so it won't look super confusing with the line art and all. But here I kinda got confused a bit. Instead of just closing the face, for some reason I made another shape with the pen tool, sampled the color of the skin, and removed the stroke. So basically I did the same thing we just did with the neck. I got no idea what I was thinking at the moment. I must have been distracted. It was so much easier to just close the shape with the pen tool, rather than create another extra shape to worry about later. So I apologize there. This goes against the idea of making the character more animation friendly, actually. Okay, we are done with the color. All that's left now is some very minor final adjustments that you do with the Object and Node tool. I can't guide you through this because it depends on the particulars of your drawing and what you don't like or are unsatisfied with in your version. And a final thing, I messed up the original color of the skin. It's different from the original one, so instead I'm gonna replace it with this swatch color. That's it. The final stage is probably the most fun stage. We're making our character pretty by adding light and shadow. We want to imply a top right light. To do that, we are gonna add some shadow to the left side. Adding shadow does not have to be this super accurate process. You do have room for error, especially in this style of cartoon. So first, let's start with the shadow in the back part of the hair. With a pen tool, draw this shape. We're gonna cut down the excess by using an intersection like we did with the socks a while back. But before that, let's give it a color. A nice trick to get nice looking shadows is to give it a really dark blue, almost black, and then lower the opacity until it looks like a shadow area. Continuing with the intersection, select the hair shape and duplicate it with Ctrl D without touching anything. Shift select the shadow shape and hit Ctrl asterisk. Send the shape to be below the head but above the hair. I think the shadow is too strong. I'll lower the opacity a bit. For the fringe of the hair, a better way to make the shadow, since it's a fairly complex shape, is to duplicate it, move it slightly down and to the left, and then give it the color of the shadow. There is a really nice feature that allows you to copy the color of a shape, including its opacity. It's called Paste Style, and it's super easy to use. Just copy the shadow shape you just made with Ctrl C, then select the fringe copy, and hit Ctrl Shift B. And this will paste the color and opacity, but keep the shape. This is a feature that you'll use constantly when making shadows, so I recommend you to memorize this shortcut. Anyway, move the shadow below the fringe and adjust it with the node tool, so it won't show outside of the head. And remember that you can add nodes by double-clicking anywhere on the shape. This may help you adjust the shape better. Make another shadow, this time covering the head and the back part of the head. Using the paste style shortcut, give it a color, and try to make them not overlap too much with each other, because they aren't at full opacity. If they overlap, you see a darker area and that looks distracting. Usually you'll just merge it with the other shadows so they don't overlap, but in this case there are other problems related to the order of the shapes. Making a quick shadow on this part of the hair. I think these next shadows are quite self-explanatory. We're just drawing on the left side. If you think about the forms of the body as cylinders, you'll realize that it's actually quite easy and predictable where the shadows should go. And here I wanted to add something extra. Drop shadows. Drop shadows always look great and are easy to add. Basically anywhere there is something that's above another thing, there we add a drop shadow. For this drawing, it will be just below the shirt and below the shorts. I mentioned before about overlapping shadows looking weird. Well, there is a trick to solve this. Just grab the two shadows and merge them together with a Boolean union, and repeat this with the shadows of the two legs. We are almost done, but a couple of things I want to refine. I'm not satisfied with the line art width. I think it should be slightly thinner. We could just select everything and set the width to every shape, but I want to take this opportunity to show you a really cool feature that will help you handle stroke properties in general. Select any shape with a stroke, then go to Edit, select Same, and here you can select either stroke color or stroke style, and this will automatically select all the shapes that have strokes applied, and none of the ones who don't. This is really useful if you want to change the color of the stroke or other property that is not just a stroke width, but like I said, I just wanted to show you this feature. Anyway, we can now go to the stroke style tab in the fill and stroke dialog, and set the width there to what we want. For my case, I set it to 0.8, but you'll need to test what works for you. Finally, the one detail I love and that I feel it gives it this nice cartoon finish, the graphic outline. This is gonna be easy. Because we didn't use any clips or mask, you can just select everything, create a duplicate, and then merge everything to get that silhouette, which is what you want to get an outline. But for that we can't have any groups, so let's do this. Select everything, hit Ctrl D to duplicate, and here with the duplicate selected, you hit Ctrl Shift G to ungroup any group it may be. And then finally you can join everything together with a Boolean union with Ctrl and plus. Send this new shape to the bottom to be behind the character, and then in the Stroke Style tab, give it a nice and thick stroke so it shows as a nice outline. And a quick shadow at the bottom. As a final refinement, it often happens that the outline is not 100% perfect. It's a good idea to go throughout the silhouette and search for places like this, where the thickness makes clear the awkward disposition of the nodes. This happens usually because there are too many nodes, so in these cases you can always just delete them, or use the Join Node button and merge unnecessary nodes. And we are done with the girl character. So that's it. Hopefully you took something out of this tutorial that you can use on your own characters. I would like to remind you that I make Inkscape tutorials every week, so if you're interested in that, subscribe and hit the bell. Also, any like and comment is highly appreciated and helps me and the channel a lot. That's it for this week. See you next video. Bye.